I will introduce Kyle Jones now, our speaker today. He is a Chair Associate Professor, Computer Science and Information Technology at Sinclair, a national expert that lives right here in our backyard. He holds licenses, certifications from several areas of expertise. He has a Master's in Information Security Assurance from APU, a Bachelor in Business from Wilmington University. He's published 3 research projects. He's presented at the National Security Agency, Executive Leadership Forum, ELF, and the National Institute of Standards and Technology, National, good Lord, Initiative for Cybersecurity Education. Dang, son. Kyle's been awarded multiple National Foundation and Security Agency grants, which have helped with cybersecurity education. He's very passionate about his expertise. If I can just add a personal note, our youngest was interested, he thought, in IT, and Kyle was kind enough to take him through Sinclair. And it was just heartwarming to see someone that is able to follow his passion and not even consider it work, I think, if I can put that through there. And he survived growing up with Richard Jones, so I'm not sure what else accreditation he needs there. But with that, please welcome Kyle Jones.
Thank you. All right, I hope to talk loud enough that everybody can hear me. I really don't want to carry a mic, but I am just coming off bronchitis, so my volume isn't as loud as what I'm used to having, right? And I'm not going to walk past here. I think that'll work out. So I hope everybody's excited about the presentation today. I did want to start off with just a few things. I am going to be running an active wireless attack. I have already plugged that in. People have accidentally already connected to it, and it says, please do not connect. So if you look at your wireless device and you are connected to a wireless access point that says, please do not connect, please turn off your wireless. My goal is when I came in this morning, I'm like, oh, that won't happen. And then it was like, crap. So I've done a presentation something like this to different security divisions, and then they've had me shut everything down. I didn't even get through my presentation. It freaked them out. So I'm hoping to do it today here. I think it'll be exciting. So again, my name is Kyle Jones. I work at Sinclair Community College. I've had the opportunity to be a part of a whole bunch of different programs. I always joke around that whenever the news has a slow news day, they're like, Kyle, what are you up to? And then they just make an article. There was even one time where Channel 2 was like, do you want to just talk about Roombas on the show? So there's, if you Google me talking about Roombas, there's me and Professor Eric Renneker just talking about Roombas. So we always joke, it must be a slow news day. So I did want to start off with just a little bit of information of things that are happening here in Ohio. I was just talking to Scott Lips about this. So I am a member of the Ohio Cyber Reserves. So I am a full sworn-in member of the Ohio Cyber Reserves program. This is a brand new program in the state of Ohio. I did not serve any time in the military. However, my background in cybersecurity allowed me to actually be a reservist. If you are also interested in being an Ohio reservist and you have a cyber defense background, does anybody got a cyber defense background in here? Oh, do I have any? I know that I at least got one IT person in here, right? Do I have any other IT people? Great, yes, awesome. You can also be a part of this program if you guys are familiar with the FBI InfraGard program. This is a little bit more in depth. If there is an active attack against a water supply system or something like that here in Ohio, I can actually be called into service. So I can actually go in and help that team with an issue. So let's say if somebody hacked a school district, water supply, electrical grid, I can actually be called into active duty. So that's very it's interesting. I also serve on the educational board with this. So we're trying to get more cybersecurity clubs, more diversity in cybersecurity. So I go to a lot of high schools and talk about different cybersecurity initiatives. I just wanted to mention that, that is an opportunity for for yourselves, or if you have a school district that's also interested in cybersecurity, we can actually deploy a team to go in and talk to the high schools. We worked on a lot of curriculum and a lot of stuff that we can give to high school teachers. I'm actually meeting with the Warren County Career Center next week because we've developed all of this new curriculum for free, and we're helping them put that in their classrooms. Yeah. There's only about 30 of us.
11,700,000 Ohioans, and we only have 30 members in the reserve.
Right. And then there's probably over 100,000 security attacks a day against the state of Ohio in small pieces. So I used to work for a large data center, and we would get over 1 million attacks a day, just to put it in that perspective. It was a financial company. So it's kind of mind-boggling. I used to do a lot of threat mapping. So, and speaking of which, right, when we think of the term cybersecurity, what do you guys think of? Right? Yeah, think of something cool, right? Like a cybersecurity guy, like hacking away in his basement. You know, even Hollywood makes it look really cool because they get people like Thor, Chris Hemsworth. He plays a hacker in a movie called Black Hat, right? That's not really what we look like, right? It really looks like this, right? And this is Steve Wozniak, by the way, right? The guy that invented the first personal computer. I think it's funny that he's wearing, you know, the guy with him, his name's Andy, he's got a shirt on called Hackers. And I think it's funny because this is a conference in 1984. I was born in 1984. And then Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, right? That's what we normally, that's what everybody really should be thinking about with cybersecurity, right? These are the type of people that set the pathway, because again, people got kind of like this goofy concept of what cybersecurity looks like, right? I often think of this. You know, Dad and I have different paths, right? He was a financial institution and all that kind of stuff. So like what he probably thinks I do is like, you know, design computers or print boards or something like that. Nobody really understands, you know, cybersecurity or what I do unless you work in IT, right? This is normally what happens, you know, it's working, but I don't really know why. That's where I spend most of my time. Like, I don't really know why this is a thing. So I really love different parts of technology, and I love gadgets. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, because I'd like to do an active wireless attack. We're going to be talking about some of the gadgets that we're going to be playing around with. But to set that up, I actually participate in a conference every year called DEF CON. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of DEF CON, but DEF CON is actually the most underground cybersecurity conference in the world, right? The last couple times I've been there, people have been arrested. You know, a lot of the people that did active attacks in other countries came over to the conference, right? They were actually arrested there at the conference. It is getting, you know, shoulder to shoulder with some of the top people in the world that do cyber defense. It's a great place to go learn how to do this. So again, I don't know if anybody's seen the Happy Jack logo. This is their logo. They make it so fun. But it's thousands of presentations, but I actually go there to compete against other types of cybersecurity specialists. The interesting thing is not only do we try to manipulate cybersecurity things, but actually physical things as well. As you guys may know, I presented at a couple different events where I actually will pick locks in the matter of seconds. My background, I actually do a lot of lock picking. I do competitive lock picking to be able to get through just about any lock in the matter of seconds. This is me and another professor at the school, Eric Riniger. We're doing a competition where we actually have to pick through a series of locks in a matter of seconds to get certain points. This is me breaking into a briefcase. It took about a 20-second Google search on how to break into a briefcase and about 4 extra minutes to learn how to actually get into the briefcase. So the conference is a lot of fun. There's a lot of interactive things. Even the badges that you get when you sign up for the conference have got hidden codes. You have to hack into the badges to actually get access to the codes. I'm not really going to say his name, but this gentleman here is over all of the U.S. Department of Defense Trustworthy Electronics Division. He travels with us to this event. He's not allowed to participate. But he goes to these events with us because we take a look at a lot of the events out there. This is Dr. Mike Labassi. He's another one of our full-time faculty members. He was over all of the security for LexisNexis for about 15 years. So he kind of retired from that position. He's one of our full-time faculty members, and showing off breaking into his badge and showing that you can actually play a game on your computer from what was hidden inside the code of the badge. So as we kind of go along and talk about some of the things that I'm going to present today, I'm actually going to be using some tools on my computer to actually relay this event. One of the tools that I'm going to be using is actually invented by a guy named David Kennedy. David Kennedy, interesting enough, lives here in Ohio. He owns a company called TrustedSec. He actually did a presentation at Sinclair when we opened our new cyber center in Centerville. I would consider David one of the top hackers in the world. He's also the largest employer of cybersecurity professionals in the state of Ohio. He was the Department of Defense cybersecurity specialist for years. He was a Marine. Excellent individual. We're actually going to be using one of his tools today to do an active attack. And when I show you this tool today, you're going to sit back and say, wow, that was too easy. That was due to all of his idea. Has anybody ever heard of a script kiddie? I'm going to say some terms today that are going to be really weird, like Fraggle Rock, Smurfing. So a script kiddie is somebody that doesn't know how to hack. They can just press buttons. And I'm going to do that today. So I'm going to make this super easy. One of the attacks that I'm going to do today is actually going to be on social engineering. Are you guys familiar with social engineering? Yeah. It's trying to trick people into doing something for you. That's the attack that I'm going to be doing today, because the idea is that humans don't have an antivirus, right? They don't have an antivirus, so it's easier to trick somebody than to try to break into somewhere. So we're actually going to be trying to do that, right? Because hackers are lazy. They're going to figure out the easiest way to do something to get into somewhere. One of the people that actually kind of founded what social engineering is Kevin Mitnick. If you get a chance, he's got a whole series of books. They're excellent. He wrote these while he was in prison. So this is Ghosts in the Wires, Art of Deception, Art of Intrusion. And honestly, he wrote them while he was in prison. First person ever in prison for stealing source code. This was the ever first cyber crime. He broke out of prison twice. With a phone, with a dial-up phone. Right. His books are extremely interesting. And he's a great guy. So let's talk about this just a little bit. I'd like to set up what we're going to be doing today. Now, I like wireless espionage. Like I said, my master's is actually in information security assurance, but I went to the University of Chicago for a couple years actually doing like cyber threat intelligence. I actually specialize in forensics background and all that kind of stuff. So cybersecurity threat intelligence is very interesting because we're going to talk about the cyber kill chain and what that consists of. But I really like a lot of these tools because they are super cheap. So one of the things that I was not kicking around with Dad, just kind of talking about things that everybody might be interested in, is has anybody ever heard of a Raspberry Pi? Right? Yeah, right? I got one right here if you've never heard of it. This is what's called a system on a chip. This is everything you need in a computer right here. Does anybody know how much this costs? $20. Yeah, it's 25, 30 bucks. Right, you're close, Chad. Right. All the attacks that I'm going to be doing today can be done on this. But I'm super lazy and I'm going to use something else that was built for me. So that's 25 bucks. You can go down to Micro Center, purchase one of those. I also have another device here. I forgot the battery and I thought it would be super cool. I love these type of products. I go to DEF CON to buy these because at DEF CON you can only use cash. Nobody can track you. Right? So I bought this out of a trunk. But this, does anybody use wireless cards to get into, facilities? Yeah. This is a wireless facility brute force attack device. And if I had a battery, I could simply turn it on, put it up next to a device, and it would just do a brute force attack against it, right? The idea of the size and the weight of this is take, for instance, here's my Sinclair card. There's that. If I hung that on a lanyard, nobody would know, right? So I got a lot of really cool devices like this that are very interesting. I got a whole bag full of them, but I knew we didn't have enough time to get into all that today. But one of the devices that we're going to be talking about is this little Wi-Fi pineapple. Now, you can probably tell the age of the people that invent this stuff because this is Wi-Fi pineapple. They just came out with a coconut. I have a packet squirrel. I got a rubber ducky. right? These are all different devices that we have. And I got this one that looks like a cat. It's called a nugget. We'll get into that one here in a minute. And the thing is these are goofy, but these are terrifying devices. So one of them is this one. And I had to put a big D on here because people kept picking this up off my desk because they thought it was a USB stick. This is a packet code injection hacking device. This basically gives me full access to your machine as soon as you plug it in. You don't even have to be logged into it. So what this does is this emulates a keyboard, but inside of it it's another system on a chip. And on this drive, this little flash drive I have installed in here, it basically has my code and everything that does the packet code injection. Keyboard injection, right? Computers inherently trust keyboards. This acts like a keyboard, pulls down the script, injects it. So it's a fun little device, right? I had to keep labeling it because we have like 100 of these laying around the office that look exactly like this. So those are a lot of fun. So that's what I'm going to talk about a little bit today, but specifically this Wi-Fi Pineapple. I kind of have it sitting here. It's plugged in. I didn't want to take the time to boot it up. I didn't know how much time that was going to eat into the presentation today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show a little bit of a wireless attack, and I want to walk through it from start to finish. Now, our wireless spectrum here in the United States is a little crazy, right? My eyes go cross-eyed every time I try to look at the U.S. wireless spectrum program, right? This is the way that the United States actually divides up wireless spectrums. Other countries don't even have this, so then that gets even more confusing. But, we have like personal, like this is, like radio, right? We have ham radio is blocked in here and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot going on inside this environment. But a lot of us have wireless tools, right? I don't know if you guys are aware or not, but Sinclair Community College just got awarded the opportunity to offer a baccalaureate's degree program. The baccalaureate degree program is going to be focused on integrated support technician, where it's going to be focused on somebody actually implementing wireless devices, IoT devices, into a network. Well, when you do that, right, you have a whole lot of security threats every time that you enter something into your network. And if I'm an attacker, all I need to do is sit back and think about the kill chain. So the kill chain for an attacker pretty much consists of this. I need to do recon. I need to figure out what I'm attacking, where I'm attacking, how am I going to do it. I need to figure out how am I going to weaponize it, deliver it, exploit it, all those things. I'm going to do all of this in like 2 minutes. Yeah, I call it hacking sped up. Our students work on labs at Sinclair, and they're like, wow, this is easy. And I'm like, yeah, but this is like hacking fast forward, right? So there's a lot of other pieces that happen in here. So let's do this. I'm going to do this from start to finish. I'm going to do an attack against myself. Now, to explain just a little bit more about this Wi-Fi Pineapple, let's take a look. I'm actually going to be running another operating system called Kali Linux. Kali Linux has got over 500 hacking tools already built into the OS. 500 hacking tools, right? And I only know about 10 of them, right? I had a student on his resume say proficient in Kali Linux. And I'm like, I don't know if anybody's proficient in over 500 tools, right? So let's log into this. All right. So again, oh man, there's 6 people connected now. So this is the interface of the Wi-Fi Pineapple. I hope everybody can see this okay, because essentially I'm logged into this little Pineapple. Now, what does this do? I don't have it running, so hopefully it's not going to cause an issue. But the idea is everybody's personal device right now is calling out to connect to a wireless access point that they've previously connected to. Right? Think about when you walk into your house, you don't have to re-authenticate to your home network, right? Your device is constantly broadcasting that out, just constantly. What this does is it captures all of those broadcasts and it says, oh, I'm that. You ought to connect to me, right? That's kind of terrifying. And the cool thing about it is if you don't automatically connect to this, I can force you to connect to it. Or if I don't want you to connect to anything, I can force your device to never connect to anything. And that's not jamming, that's illegal. Right? It's actually doing what's called a deauthorization, right? Yes, that's not right. I'm actually doing a de-auth attack. That means your wireless device has to authenticate. There is a packet, a little piece of code that tells it, hey, you don't need to be connected to that anymore. That's a very simple exploit. That's actually what this little cat does. It's a cute little cat. I basically can plug this into a battery, and I can find your device, I can find the wireless access code that you are associated with, and I can run an attack between the two devices, making sure that you never connect to any device. Yeah, kind of cool, but when you think about it, right, this is small enough to fit in my pocket, but let me say I walk up to your house and I don't want your security cameras to see it, right? I can take down security cameras. Now, there are different stories on this. If you research these a little bit, there is a lot of groups that do no-knock warrants, and these are actually some of the devices that they're using to take down the cameras. Does anybody remember the individual that was shot by going up, doing a no-knock warrant? The guy saw him on the camera. They opened the door. He shot the police officer. So, just some of the ideas of some of the things that people are using for this attack. Now, I'm going to be using one of David Kennedy's programs, and I am going to mimic an actual website that you guys might use every day, and I am going to steal the passwords that are going to be typed into this website. Hopefully this will make sense. If you guys have any questions as I kind of go through this, because I'm going to do this live, I'm going to do this from start to finish. If you guys have any questions, let me know. Now, to start this off, I'm actually going to run a program called the Social Engineers Toolkit. What a great name, right? Social Engineers Toolkit. What do I want to do? I want to socially engineer. I'll use Toolkit. So I'm going to load up Social Engineers Toolkit, type in my password. And I tried to make the font a little bit bigger so everybody could see it okay. But I did want to point this out. Remember David Kennedy, the guy I was talking about? He's the guy that wrote this program. Now, remember how I said there's a group of people called script kiddies? All they have to do is touch a button to get things to work? That's what we're going to do today. So, this gives me an option menu. What do I want to do? I want to do a social engineer attack. I press 1. Okay? I want to do a website vector attack, so I press 2. I'm going to do a credential harvester because I want to steal everybody's passwords. I'm going to press 3. Okay, and then I am going to do a site cloner because I'm too lazy to go and make another website. So I'm just going to hit number 2, and we're going to make a website. Now, here's just a little bit of networking info. I want the passwords to report back to me. I don't want them to go somewhere else. So this is how I'm going to harvest those credentials. Okay, so I'm going to hit enter, and then it says, well, what do you want to attack? Like what website? How about Facebook? Mark Zuckerberg's not in here. All right. Okay, I do want to point this out because a lot of people are like, oh, well, that's HTTP, then HTTPS. This does both. Okay? And, I know, it should have been quicker than that. I'm done. All right, I'm done. I just did a full attack against Facebook about anybody that connects to this wireless access point will be automatically sent to Facebook, to my Facebook that I just made. Now, to prove the point, cross my fingers, hope that this works. Hopefully I'm the only person connected to this wireless device. Yes, I'm connected to do not connect, by the way. Okay, I am going to go to Facebook.
Kyle, can I be in airplane mode and be immune to this?
No. Well, it depends on if you have Bluetooth turned off, and there's what's called ANC. There's some other.
Especially these, you press the airplane icon.
That's right. I have another thing that might help. Oh, okay, there we go. Okay, I don't know if everybody can see that. What does that look like?
Facebook login.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Now, did you notice that this all of a sudden was like, ho-ho, you got somebody. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just type my name in. Okay. not my real one. Okay? And then I'm going to log in. Okay? Now, if I would have typed in my real username and password, it would have actually logged into Facebook. Now, you might have noticed that this did a whole lot of other jarble, but look, there is my clear text username and password that I just typed in. Right? I typed in Kyle.Jones, Kyle Rocks as the password. There it is. That's start to finish a wireless attack against any mobile device. You can do this within 5 minutes. Cool. Any questions? Andy?
Yeah, so who would use this? When are they going to use it?
Sure.
How do we defend it?
Sure. So this is actually one of those attacks that back in, 1980, when they came out with the wireless standards, they actually were like, who would ever want to attack a wireless device? They actually didn't put security with a lot of these things, right? There's what's called IPsec. There's a DNS registry program that's built in your browser. I just faked all of that. The biggest thing is this is a rogue access point. The idea is if you're familiar with your network and your environment, let's say at a business, and you see a rogue device due to an audit, due to a scan, that needs to be investigated, right? Because like I was saying, this is hacking fast forward. Because if I was actually going to do this, I would need to figure out where I'm going to do this, how far away do I need to be, what type of an attack. And I'm just using Facebook. But what if I was on your internal network and I just mimicked your actual intranet page? It's easy to do that as well. Now, the nice thing is my browser, as soon as I went to go type in my password, it says, something doesn't seem to be right about this. It actually said that in the password box. So that should be a red flag. Now, if I would have taken maybe 10 minutes to set this up, I can also spoof that as well. But I tried to do this as quick as possible, one, because, when you do a live thing, you're like, oh man, I really hope that this works. So, but really, making sure that you understand your network, making sure that nobody's doing anything nefarious, because most of the cyber attacks that happen, they happened years ago, and they're just now being discovered, right? The government has said that multiple times, that they just found out that somebody was in their network, and they think it was like 2017. So that's how a lot of this works. But doing recon, scans, and trying to identify that those things are there. Also, as goofy as this little device is, I did this same talk to all of our county auditors, so all 55 of our auditors. I was up in Columbus. It was probably about February. One of their IT guys came up to me after and was like, what is something that I can do to protect that? This little device here automatically recognizes when anybody's doing a wireless threat within 300 or 400 feet. And what's funny is his little cat eyes turn on, and there's little X's on the cat eyes if anybody's doing a wireless attack near you. So he actually went out and bought one, the IT guy, and he has it sitting on his desk, right? So he can actively see if there was ever an attack that was happening on his network, right? However, I often think about this in our personal lives too. I name this wireless access point, do not connect. But actually inside of this networking thing, I can make my wireless access point say whatever I want, right? I got to change this to say Starbucks, right? I can make it anything. Actually, I can turn it on to make it think that it's whatever you guys want it to be. It just automatically connects. Also, the other cool thing is that tomorrow I get a new one, because I ordered it like 3 months ago, that even does more than what I'm showing you today, right? It actually does airplane tracking, because airplanes send beacons, so now I can track airplanes in their exact location with up to about 15 miles away, with an antenna that's about like this big. Right, so everybody's kind of like, I don't know what to ask, I don't know what happened. I do want to mention this. I just have these little antennas on here. So my range is about 305 feet, according to the National Institute of Standards and Technology. Now, what if I were to put full spectrum antennas on? Right? Then I'm about 400 or 500 feet. Now, what if I actually connected a Yagi? Now, you're talking about 1.5 miles. So I always joke around with my student. I'm like, what's more terrifying, me being able to pick your lock or to me sit 1.5 miles away and break into your wireless access points? Or turn it this way and point it towards Walmart, Kroger. I had to steal this from one of my other friends this morning, making sure it stays okay. These are handmade, by the way. Yeah. I was like, I promise, I won't break it.
Where are they handmade?
So I think it's a guy in Utah. He sits in his garage and he cuts them, routes them out, puts them in the things, and he goes to DEF CON and only takes cash. So yeah, that's the idea is a simple cable, you plug it into that, right, and then you've increased. And it's all out of this itty bitty little device. Now, I also have another plug that I can plug into this. And this is called a software-defined radio. And then I can start like opening up people's garage doors. Right? Unlock your car. Right? Does anybody have like a wireless button they use to open the car? Yeah. That's inside that spectrum, that approved wireless spectrum. Right. There's actually a company called Unicorn 360 that's developed a device that all you need to do is have a person stand next to the car and a person stand next to the person that has a fob. If you have one of those fobs that you don't have to hit the button, and it automatically just unlocks the car and turns it on. That's the same company that made this. Yeah. Cool. All right. So, just to kind of go along with some of these things, I can actually do a scan in the room. I can see everybody that's devices that are in here. I'm not going to do that. What was funny is I did this at UD because they wanted, to do a whole presentation in this cyber defense. And it was really funny because it collected all of these college kids' devices, and their device names were so inappropriate. I had it was pretty funny because I'm like, look, I can scan everybody's devices. And I'm like, oh, man. Yeah. So that was pretty funny too. So it can actually perform a lot. Now, we also teach this in our classes, but the idea is we teach students to how to do scans of their networks, making sure that everything's secure, making sure that they don't have rogue access points. Because as nefarious as this is, even if you have an employee that brings like a home wireless router from home and plugs it into your network, you've got a whole nother series of threats that just happened to your network that you just had plug in. So it's actually crucial that we try to keep in mind the things that are out there, right? You can buy this online for about $100, right? Or you can buy one for $35 and turn this into the same thing. Yeah.
How does like VPNs play into this? Like, with remote work being on the rise and people logging in remotely, they use about VPN. Does that help protect a lot?
It does.
Repeat the question.
Sure.
For these other folks.
Right. Yeah. So the question was about VPNs. Yes. VPNs would have prevented this, right? Because what it is a secure connection between two endpoints. My question is do you trust your endpoint? There's a lot of VPN providers out there that aren't necessarily, might not even be US companies, that people use VPNs even when they're at home, and I got a whole other odd thing about that. But if you don't trust where you're actually connecting to, your VPN might be doing this on their end. Right? There's actually a couple cases where they were doing this.
What about all those companies that promise security? Do they?
I have a statistic, and I'm not sure if I want to say it out loud. I already started, right? So most antiviruses only block 2% of cyber attacks that are out there. I have not ran an antivirus on my system in the last 15 years. They just slow down your machine, and they're only good for about 2%. The amount of threats that are being released to the amount of time that they're writing patches to fix it. Remember, a lot of AI systems can automatically write different threats. I actually have some friends that participated in a DARPA challenge where they had a full autonomous machine write its own threats and attack other machines. And all they were allowed to do was to turn it on. Right? So imagine, right, you don't have humans sitting down trying to write all this code and manipulate systems, but you have like an AI machine that says, oh, this didn't work, rewrite. Oh, this didn't work, rewrite. Oh, this worked, okay. Let's save that one. So imagine, millions of threats. Last time I did like an analysis on this, it was like 2019. And I think it said like 210,000 new threats were coming out a week that were unique. And there was only one threat a week that antiviruses and stuff were actually blocking. So then it really does come back down to company resiliency and making sure that employees are also trained in cybersecurity awareness and awareness trainings and all that kind of stuff, which I think is actually a requirement now in the state of Ohio that everybody attends or is a part of cybersecurity awareness. Because remember, social engineering would probably be the easiest way to do this attack, right? You're actually tricking somebody. Or I could even make it easier where I would call like a help desk person and say, hey, can you connect to this site? I'm having trouble connecting. Can you connect? They connect, they get the payload, I get their password, they get in. Right? So that's what this whole cybersecurity thing is so interesting because it's so fast-paced. We're having a very hard time keeping track of. Like Scott said, well, there's only 30 of us in the cyber reserves. Right? There's only so much we can do to help out. And that's really if everything hits the fan, as they would call us in. So I think that there's a huge need right now to make sure that everybody is making sure that they're protected. Because I had a joke with David Kennedy for a while. He used to always joke that he said, I will fix cybersecurity in every single company. And his way to do that was he was going to hire hundreds of thousands of cyber defense people to sit next to every employee at the company, right? And like slap their hands whenever they did something. But the last time I talked to him, he was like, even some of my staff have fallen victim to things. So even having the people that are experts in it still having issues. So it's a very strange, it's a strange world, and there is a lot of attacks and things happening. I'm more concerned about our critical infrastructure systems. And again, like if you think about this presentation and the way that it's set up, just kind of think about it. I just used Facebook's site, and you saw how fast and easy that was. And I did it on a wireless device just to show that more in depth. But what if I had access to your network? That would be even easier. And I could attack thousands of people at the same time. Instead of just on the wireless network, what if I did it on the hardwired network? And what if I didn't do actually just stealing your credentials? I can actually set this up as a keylogger and steal every single keystroke you make. Because this is what's called a man-in-the-middle attack. This device is connected to the internet over here, and it's acting as a wireless access point for people to connect here. And in the middle, this black part, is collecting everything else. It collects everything so well that it even shows me pictures of what you're doing. Yeah. There's another program. To go along with the whole DEF CON thing, one of the things at DEF CON is they have what's called the wall of sheep, which is basically if you show up to this conference and you use your devices, like I'd never recommend taking a device there, if you do, throw it away. But people go there and then they connect to the wireless there, and then they steal everybody's passwords and they put it up on a wall. It's called the wall of sheep, right? Because people are sheeple. So this one also has that program built into here that if I hit different websites, this will actually show me images and actually get cookies, data, URLs of everything that I'm connected to, navigating. And depending on how the VPN is set up, I can set the VPN up after this. So I can actually collect before. And then I can also use this to actually break into somebody's wireless. Like if they have a wireless at their house that has a strong password, this actually has enough power that I can actually break wireless password configurations. So we can do WPA, WPA2, all that with inside the device. So, yeah. And then again, in here, I got to turn it on to do this one. I'm not going to do this. Because this is actually not running. like I'm not actively turning this on to actively do an attack. I'm only doing this with my device. But in order to do this wall of sheep where I could see everything and even the images that I'm looking at, actually I have a picture. Just in case this were to fall through, I actually made slides that showed the same thing that I did. So the idea is you can see here's my pineapple, and sorry Sinclair, I used Sinclair's website for this. I just went to Sinclair here on my laptop, and then here you can see all the pictures even as they're coming in. And then keystrokes and all that kind of stuff. Cool. How long did I have, Arla?
You have until 1:15.
1:15, all right. Cool. So, did anybody have any other questions about the start and into this attack? This is a very simple system. It only took me a couple minutes to set up. Also, I could even cover my tracks as a virtual system. Here in the next 5 minutes, I'll delete that virtual system. Everything went away. There's no proof that I did anything.
So how has anybody ever said?
We're not.
Okay with not being okay.
Right. Well, and it's funny too because people are like, Kyle, you're probably the most paranoid person. I'm like, not really. I just come to accept these things exist and some things that are out there. I've met some people that are like super overly concerned. I have a couple friends that are completely erasing themselves. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of like that process. But they're trying to remove themselves from anything and everything, right? We know that Facebook has got facial recognition collections, right? So take, for instance, I uploaded my family's photos to Amazon Photo. It flagged everybody's images and put them into different categories with their faces and names. I never did any of that. I didn't say my daughter's Emma or my son's Jacob. It did it. I don't have a Facebook account, as you can tell. I don't have social media. How did it do that? Right? There's a lot of crazy algorithms out there of things that will automatically do that. Now, I think Facebook said that they are going to end their facial recognition program because it became overly aggressive. Yeah, right. That's what they told the public anyway. So that's just one of those things. So again, I always joke around with my students, what is scarier? Me being able to manipulate a lock. Does anybody know how locks work? Locks are very, 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 very simple devices. So locks only consist of 3 parts, right? You have a pin, you have a shear line, you have a spring, and a shuttle. All you have to do is manipulate the lock to line it up to the shear line and it opens. This is how locks work. And if it doesn't have a lock, you just use one of these. This is how most systems work, right? Especially if you have the right tools and the people that know how to use it, just like this wireless access point. You know, if somebody's given the right tools and they understand how it works, they're able to manipulate it. Cool. Now, one of the things that we did discuss, just because we got a couple more minutes.
Well, Kyle, we got this room until 1:30, so if nobody has questions, you can keep going.
Okay, well, we got another question.
I don't even know how to ask it. I'm a little afraid. I'm part of the banking industry, and forget what I do for a living, but how about the fact that I pay all my bills online? You?
Yes. Yeah, that's right. What do I do and what do I don't do? All right. So, yes. It's great, right? So, I will say that type of interaction on a site is very secure. If I hadn't taken some extra time, do a little bit of recon to actually figure out exactly how to do this today. And I joke with my students too, right? I have a master's degree in this. I have some students that come in from high school and they're like, I'm going to do that. I'm like, Yeah, I'll come and see me in 20 years, There's a lot to be said about the front end and the back end of a system. All I did was manipulate the front end of this. If you're already authenticated into your bank and you can see your banking information, you have already authenticated into the correct system. I always recommend definitely going to the site. Like if you get an email from somewhere that says, hey, you ought to go check your account, don't click that, right? Go to the site itself. There's a lot to be said with DNS security. Let me explain that a little bit more. Does everybody know, right, that websites are just numbers? Right? We as humans have to type in a word, but the computer sees a number on the back end, what's called an IP address. People manipulate that. It's called a DNS record. That's actually what I did to do this attack. But the way I manipulated it is I misspelled Facebook in order to fake it, because I can't actually manipulate Facebook. The reason is they have a secure record, just like your bank, just like most secure organizations, that do not allow this type of attack to actually happen across the internet, and so does your web browser. Your web browser's got what's called DNSSEC built into it, so it would automatically recognize your local machine is not matching what information is happening on the internet. If those two things don't line up, you'll automatically get a message saying that this is not a trusted site.
What about shopping online then?
Uh,
Some good news. I might have an illness.
So, shopping online is very interesting. I've actually helped people try to get their money back shopping online. But it depends on where you're doing it at, right? If you're using Amazon, like the most trusted, thing out there, that, eBay. But I had a friend that she was shopping for some clothes, and she went to this site because it was like $10 cheaper to buy it from the site than it was to do it like through Walmart or Amazon because they were a third-party group. We found out that if you ordered it on Amazon, you actually got the product, but if you went to the site, you didn't, right? Yeah. So again, it's all about trust. There's a thing in cybersecurity that we call cybersecurity theater, right, where things make it look like it's really secure. It's just like locks. Locks are super easy to pick, but yet we'll put a little lock on like a shed. It's like, yeah, is that really doing anything? Or is it making it appear like it's doing something? So there's a lot of that. So there's a guy named Bruce Schneier, who's probably one of the best cybersecurity defense speakers. And he always says, at some point you have to have trust, or you'll never do anything, right? There has to be like this trust idea. Even with banking online, traveling, even with other people, you have to have that trust piece. There's a funny show called Adam Ruins Everything. He's got one on trust and security. And what's interesting is in that they talk a lot about, going through the metal detector at an airport. Remember, when I go and speak at conferences, I take every single thing that's in this bag with me. I take all my lockpick sets. I take everything. I never once have been stopped. I could take down an entire airport, even the air traffic controllers, with this device. Never once have I ever been asked. But they stopped me once because I forgot that my fingernail clipper had a pocket knife on it. So, what are we trusting in?
So take that point, what do you do as you're training up the next generation of security professionals to make sure they're not bad guys?
That's funny. I had one of my faculty members just asked me that the other day. He's like, how do we make sure that these people are not doing that? I will say that people that are doing bad things are already doing that, and they're not coming to school to learn how to do it. That's normally what we get into. What we normally find out is that our students will sign up and they'll say, hey, we want to be the protectors of this because we are concerned. There are a lot of bad actors out there, and they are several steps ahead of us. So as scary enough as it sounds, when I teach some of this stuff in our classes, You know, if a student that really knows their stuff are like, pfft, I learned that like 10 years ago. Or I wrote an exploit 10 years ago, right? And like, it hasn't even caught up yet. So that's one of the things that we've seen too, that a lot of our students, they want to work, they want to have a job, you know, they want to go into the industry, and they know that they're not going to do that. Now, Kevin Mitnick does have a funny shirt, and he's actually wearing it here. It says, I'm not a hacker, I'm a cybersecurity professional. He's also got another one he wears, and it says the fastest way to a cybersecurity profession, and it's got prison on one side and education on the other. Because he served about 10 years in prison, right? And he was like, well, if I actually went and got a degree, I would probably be, it would have took him about the same amount of time, right? Unless, yeah.
Can you speak to the difference between HTTP and HTTPS?
Sure.
Is HTTPS still considered secure?
Yes. So HTTPS, right, the S standing for secure. HTTP is not secure. There's a program what's called IPsec, IP security. Because again, remember when a lot of the internet was created and this happened, nobody thought, who on earth would want to attack this, right? A lot of the cybersecurity in-depth strategists are like, none of this stuff was ever thought that anybody would do something bad. So now everything you see today still consists of stuff that was made in the 80s, right? That's how most of our stuff still consists of programs that were designed in that time frame or laid out. I mean, even our network operations systems are still running on standards that were developed in the 1950s. What we challenge our students too is to make sure that they are coming up with the new technologies in the future that they can prevent a lot of these things. But HTTPS is one of those duct tape things that they're like, oh no, people are hacking sites and they're causing all these problems. Let's actually make a security feature. So one of the security features is HTTPS. Now, has anybody seen when you went to a web browser where it's got like a little lock on top, right? That means you're on an HTTPS site. That means you're connected to a secure site that's been authenticated through what that DNS, the DNS IPsec, to make sure that you're connected to a secure environment. Now, I do have to say that attackers are getting better and better because the attack that I just did also did the attack on HTTPS. However, when I went to HTTPS, it had a little circle on the top and not something saying that it was verified. Because on the internet, we actually have signed certs. I don't know how deep anybody wants to get into this, but it actually is certifying that that is the site that you want it to be, right? So anybody out here that has a corporation, they probably have a signed signature that they pay a company to actually have a verified signature, making sure that they actually are a verified site that it's HTTPS. It is a level of security. It's not quite as good as running a VPN, but still having a secure site. But attackers are getting better and better and better with this. And what's funny is it's only costs like $25 or $30 to actually get a verified signed certificate. So David Kennedy in his presentations, he always jokes around and he was like, you know, all of these, like Russia doesn't have $25 to buy a to buy a secure certificate and make a, you know, an HTTPS site. So again, there is a lot of people, you know, that attackers are way ahead of us. Sorry.
So can you register a legitimate secure site and then spoof the URL to use it for this kind of thing so that it's going to come up and look like a secure site?
Yes. However, that is not one of those like 10-minute attacks. You would actually have to do what's called an Arp spoof on a DNS server that's out on the internet. I mean, you're talking weeks and weeks and weeks worth of recon, attack, configuration, manipulation, without being notified by your ISP that you're actually trying to do that attack. That idea was actually what made me and another faculty member come up with what I showed today, because we were like, can we do this? There's actually several websites that are how-tos. So if you want to do it, it's called Arp Spoofing. You can actually type in, you know, how to Arp spoof my internet service provider. And you'll probably have some 15-year-old kid that wrote a perfect walkthrough manual on how to do it. Yes?
Does the increase in artificial intelligence that you're seeing in everyday technology, does that make it easier or harder down the road to prevent these?
It's making it harder to prevent it. Well, and the reason is we have nation-state attackers, right? So we have nation-state funded, computer science professionals that are funded to do nothing but attack other countries. Yeah. So that makes it a little bit more difficult when people are almost unlimited funded to do that kind of work. Yes?
If you could just give 1 or 2 tips, precautions that would apply to all of us, what would that be?
I never recommend getting on any wireless access point that you're not familiar with. Even, so take for instance, if you go to a hotel and your hotel's like, oh, we have free Wi-Fi. You're like, I always recommend using your own access points. I've actually even recommended to companies to buy, like if they traveled a lot, actually access points, like the little hockey pucks, because then that's a trusted provider. Then you don't have somebody connecting to different wireless access points in different places. Because it's very, very easy to have a wireless access point do things that shouldn't be done. So I know people go to Starbucks or whatever, but if you go there and you just want to search directions to somewhere, cool, don't log into your bank account, don't shop, right? That's kind of a scary thing. One of the other, we were actually talking about keychain earlier. I don't know if you approve of this or not, but having some sort of password manager helps out a lot. Take, for instance, my bank password is like 180-some characters long. I have no idea what it is. And I've never had to, right? Because I use a keychain manager to actually use my passwords. And then just making sure that you're aware, right? Especially if you see somebody doing something and you're like, something doesn't look quite right. Remember, most attackers won't be walking around in a hoodie, right? Like they look like they've lived in their parents' basement and they're, Most attackers are going to be well-dressed, either clients, professionals, PC repair people, printer repair people, and you're like, Because take, for instance, a printer. When you hit print on your computer, it takes everything that you're about to print and stores it on a hard drive at the printer to free up resources on your machine, and then the printer takes that hard drive and prints things. Well, then that data stays forever on that hard drive. And let's say a printer repair person comes in and says, oh, I need to swap out the hard drive on your printer. And they take that hard drive and they take everything you've ever printed with them. Yeah. We have a student at Sinclair that actually works for one of the highest cybersecurity companies. And all he does is printer attacks because that was such a large vulnerability for companies.
What about double authentication?
Yeah. Yeah, two-factor authentication. Two-factor authentication is a big win, I think. You might notice too that, take for instance, Sinclair's got double-factor authentication to log into our devices, right? And we want to pull our hair out with this type of stuff, because every time you do something, right, it asks for two-factor authentication. So there's actually a graph that talk about people's acceptness and talk about security levels. So just think at your company, every time that you implement a new cybersecurity tactic, think about the overload of people trying to adapt to all of these things they have to do for cybersecurity, like double-factor authentication. It's great, but it makes work harder. So normally when you see a graph where people are implementing all of these cybersecurity things, and then you see all these attacks against the company because people have tried to figure out ways around all of their security things so they can make things happen. So there's an acceptance to user rate that's actually kind of scary. It's the same with companies too about teaching cybersecurity to all personnel. Like if you send out something every week, people are just not going to notice it anymore. But if you have regular trainings, right, it's like what's more effective. So making sure that people are aware and trained on these devices. One of my master's thesis papers was actually on how most major attacks happen just at an individual level. Right? Remember, like the target attack was against the HVAC systems, and it was just because the HVAC guy used the same username and password to all of the other companies. Somebody got a hold of that, got in. That was just a social engineering attack. So some of the largest attacks have just been very simple social engineering attacks. Yeah.
How hard and what do you think, if anything, will come of the OPM hack that was a few years ago that made the news for a little bit, but then I think everyone got real scared, so they didn't want to talk about it?
Right. So Okay. What's scarier than that? Dr. Richard Harknett at the University of Cincinnati. I don't know if anybody knows Dr. Richard Harknett. Yeah. Richard actually is, he helps with policies for the United States to come up with different policy forms. So Richard actually did a breakdown once in one of the conferences. We actually spoke together, and he goes into this thing, and it scared me to death. He was like, remember the OPM attack? Right? Made news, made everybody really afraid. He was like, 2 days later, like Hilton hotels were attacked. Nobody said anything. What his job is to take a look at nation-state attacks, like the OPM attack, right? Released everybody that had a security clearance, all that information. Well, what happens when that is attacked and you collect all that info with hotels? So he's got a full breakdown that talks about the issues that happen with the OPM attack and about how that triangulates with all of the other issues that were happening at that time and other attacks. Because a lot of this comes to like a political state level issues, and then that gets very concerning, right? Because all my stuff is at OPM too, because I work for the NSA, right? So I work at the educational level doing work for OPM and NSA, so all my stuff is in that too, right? Which is concerning because OPM is the HR of the U.S. government. Office of Personnel Management. Yep. And they are a great group of people. I'm actually assigned to an individual at OPM. I don't know if anybody knew this. Sinclair Community College was the first ever community college in the United States to get the Scholarship for Service program to teach students how to go into cybersecurity, and then they had to work for the federal government for the X amount of years. We have students at NIST. We have students at FDIC. We have 3 that do cyber development for war games for the federal government. And we work directly with OPM, comes out to Sinclair quite a bit because that's actually a directive of theirs to work on this pilot program with us. So every time that they travel, I'm like, hey, I knew you were coming. Yeah, awesome. Any other thoughts or questions? What got me into this? Oh, man. So I've loved technology ever since I was little. I actually worked for a friend that owned a ham radio shop, and it was all of this kind of like gadgets and things, and I really got interested in it. And I actually went to Clinton Massey schools, and I was really big into fly fishing at the time, and so was the IT director. And he was like, hey, have you ever thought about working in IT over the summers? So for 3 years, when I was in high school, I was the IT person because he transitioned to be over like the sports. So I ran IT for Clinton Massey for years, and then I worked with Larry, got me a job at Go Concepts. And I worked at Go Concepts for years, and then I got an offer to work for a large cyber defense company called Radian. They do all mortgage financial underwriting for every major bank around the world. So, you know, I worked with groups from Hong Kong, Australia, India, and of doing international cyber defense or transatlantic lines for about 10 years. And that was quite the experience. And then I started adjuncting at Sinclair, and then I've been here ever since. Yeah, and I love it. I probably talked too much when I was in the data center, right? Because normally when you think of an IT person, I may not be the ideal one. That's right. So I got really interested in it, loved talking to students. We had a whole lot of interns from Sinclair when I worked at that data center. I was asked to adjunct a couple classes in the evening, and yeah. So we also do a couple other things. I wanted to throw this out there. Sinclair's not really known to be like a research school, but actually me and some of my faculty members, we actually are a part of a large research projects. One of them is actually we're developing a synthetic fabric. This is actually a fabric that has nickel and silver grown onto the threads, and we turn it into these Faraday bags. Now, this is not available to the general public. This is actually used in parts of the government. I don't know, I can't say that. One of the things that we did is we actually built cyber defense secure backpacks. So take, for instance, if you work in intelligence and you get extracted somewhere and you need to pick up a device or a laptop or a tablet and you need to keep it alive for so long, you can actually slide it into this backpack. It disappears because it It can block any wireless Wi-Fi access at all. You drop something in here, it disappears. And then they can get it somewhere to do forensics analysis on it. So if you see people walking around with backpacks that look like these, either from the US government or the British Secret Service, those were actually built and designed for them. So we've been doing that quite a bit too. We actually turned it into wallpaper as well, because we turn it into wallpaper. So if you want to secure an entire room and have it completely blocked off, you can wallpaper it. Then you don't have to meet like Tempest ratings and do the whole SOC stuff. So it's very interesting. We actually have an entire case made out of this fiberglass. It's super light, and it's actually the same case that they may or may not have used when they went and got Osama bin Laden's stuff, where they had to throw everything into a case, lock it down. We're able to transport it, right? Because if you use Find My iPhone, right, you can pull it up, you can see where things are at, but what if you put it in something like that? It disappears. We have a lot of kids wanting to use these to like disappear from their parents. Like that's the first thing that high school students say when I present on this. I'm like, so the other stuff wasn't cool enough? You want to disappear from your parents? Cool. Any other questions? If not, thanks everybody. I really appreciate it.